The following program may contain strong language and brief nudity. But don't get your hopes up. After all, this is public access TV. This program was made possible from the support of VSA Texas and Amerigroup.
Rise up, Amerigroup.
Hi, folks. I'm Gene.
And I'm Dave.
And we're the
Gene and Dave Show. I am so excited for this another episode of South by Southwest. And man, this one is, we pulled out all the technology stops. Man, if you're a technology guru, you are going to love this episode, so don't go anywhere. And if you're not a technology guru,
you will be after watching this.
Watch it anyway, because there is some really fantastic, cool stuff on here.
Yeah, we've been coming to South by Southwest for years, but this time, not only vendors, but there were presentations or workshops, everything that enabled people with disabilities.
Absolutely.
So let's get started.
So we got all hooked up, we got our camera gear on, and we were rocking and rolling at South by Southwest 2013.
Dave, we're here at South by Southwest with Jeremy and Dominic. We're going to give a presentation on 3D printing. And this is particularly geared for people with disabilities. So you're going to enjoy this.
The Enable by Design-a-thon is a 2-day event. It's kind of an experiment to see how we can bring together our community with makers and new technology to come up with new products that can potentially change people's lives.
Born disabled, I've kind of always just adapted to things, really. There are a couple of things that it took me a long time to find a way around. One of the biggest things, though, sounds really trivial to everyone else, is breaking eggs. Up until about 2 years ago, I'd never cracked an egg in my life. But that wasn't until a friend of mine bought me this. It's an egg breaker. Very simple thing, made of plastic. It opens up, a bit like that. Egg goes in it, closes up, you bang it on a surface, open it back up, yolk and everything falls out of the thing, and in theory, no shell. So that is a very, very simple example of how a very simple product can, I don't want to say change my life out of making eggs, because I didn't feel like I was massively underprivileged not being able to break eggs, but it has opened up omelettes, cakes. I can bake now. I'd never been able to bake before.
So as you can see from that, Enable by Design has tried to bring design for all to the mainstream, really. I think very importantly, because of the society we live in, because of the way disability is viewed on the whole, design for all and universal design is actually a really useful concept for us to think through in terms of how can we just mainstream accessibility? How can we make sure that everything we do meets everybody's needs as best as possible? And that was very much the mentality that we came from initially with Enable by Design, particularly because of where the product manufacture world is, and also we started Enable by Design about 4 years ago, so 3D printing was maybe just about being introduced to South by in 2009 at that point, but even then we were a little bit before that, so that's where it is. It was obviously in Enable by Design, we've got this amazing community of people who either have a need themselves, they're the users of this equipment, or they're occupational therapists, they're advisors of people who need this equipment, or they're designers or manufacturers who are either making money from assistive equipment, or they're designing really trivial things day to day, and they wanted to do something that mattered to them. And so the idea was to bring 100 people together in a room to look at a bunch of needs. So there was, I think we got 13 needs on the day. It was a classic kind of hackathon thing. And we, as FutureGov, we do an awful lot of digital hackathons, so people who spend 24 hours building apps and services in that sense. And what we wanted to do was a physical hackathon, to actually see how far we could prototype products over the course of 24 hours as well. So one of the examples, Paul is obviously our favourite subject, but he enjoys it so much, so why not? But he came along and he kind of expressed a few of his problems, a bit like his egg cracking problem, but he also expressed a need for trying to solve the kettle issue, which you can see some of the prototypes on the table up here of where we were starting to hack at kettles. As you can see, when you're missing the bottom half of your arms, it's a bit of a dangerous struggle to try and pour a kettle, to say the least. And that was tending to be how he did it previously. kettles aren't really that brilliantly insulated for people who want to push the bottom so that they can pivot on the top half of their arm. So we set about some of the IDEO and student designers thinking about this problem with them. So we had this room full of people. That was us, all of us working on these 13 ideas that we had. And this was the outcome of it. This is about as far as we got on the day.
The first presentation we went to was 3D design enabled by design.
Yeah, and I was wondering, Gene, what in the world is 3D printing? You know, they did 3D design, and I was like, and how does that affect people with disabilities? But this enabled by design group is kind of like, when I was watching them, they're like the Air Austin, you know, as to web pages, as what these enabled by design are for engineers, for the stuff that people with disabilities need. I mean, all the time I'm thinking, man, I just wish I had that one thing, that one type of remote, or that one way that, you know, I could get something done. And I think about it in my head, and wow, that's as far as it goes. But these enabled by design people, man, they've got 3D printing, and they design everything, 3D print it out, and test it on the folks that need the equipment.
Yeah. Now 3D printing, for those of you that aren't familiar with it, is an additive manufacturing process. Now, instead of, say, taking a block of wood and chipping away whatever doesn't belong, they start with nothing and just add to it bit by bit till they get a item, custom design item that they want. Now, they didn't have a good video to show for us, but Dave and I found one on the web. This will show you how 3D printing works.
Pretty cool stuff. So, Gina, I've heard that you had something special that you had one time, and you lost it, and you needed to make another one, and you used 3D printing.
Exactly, yeah. I had a special bowl that I used in the microwave, and it was just right for me to get out of the microwave. I could never find a replacement for it, but I called my brother, who does 3D printing, and I said, this is what I need, and he went ahead and made one. This is what it looks like, but he made that on his 3D printer. So, you know, like you're saying, you had in mind something you wanted or could really use. If you had a 3D printer at home, you could just make it.
I'll have to run right out and get one.
To welcome you all to Enabled by Design-a-thon. Enabled by Design is a social business and community of people who are passionate about design for all. We believe that good design can support people to live as independently as possible, just by making day-to-day tasks that little bit easier.
We can create sort of parallel evolution, and it accelerates evolution and finding great solutions. So that's the first bit of good news. We're a really eclectic bunch. And there's something really exciting to think about, you know, a future where products are designed to make the customer the expert.
The Enabled by Design-a-thon has kind of been about looking at new technologies, new materials, new ways of working, and bringing together a whole range of people, so from designers, engineers, health and social care professionals, people with personal experience of independent living as well. So kind of getting loads of people together and seeing what they can come up with within 24 hours.
Are we in the list? No.
I've got about these for half an hour. My legs hurting, my arms are hurting. Like if I was going to go out clubbing, I can't go out clubbing anymore. I'm all tired.
So we're doing beautiful phone holding mount. So you can kind of tap along while you're walking, as demonstrated by Nick.
I think people have been really quite inventive with what they've been prototyping with. We've had things such as drugs going missing from the refreshments table and being incorporated into designs. So yeah, people have been hacking things or making things from scratch.
additive manufacturing. So we prototyped quite a lot of our cutlery ideas, and they seem to work, which is excellent. Really, really good to find out. So.
And maybe Austin will have an enabled by design workshop someday.
That would be awesome.
Yeah, because they made 12 prototypes in 24 hours, and it was great.
Very cool stuff. We'll keep watching for those folks to come on over and work on stuff. But until then, go to their website and check it out at Enabled by Design. So Gene, with these 3D products that people make, like the bowl, for example. So when your brother printed the bowl out for you, did he just mail it to you and then you just used the 3D printing bowl?
I sure did, Dave, but he made that a few years ago. Now we have a little bit more information, and we know that there are two different types of plastic they use in 3D printing, at least two. One is toxic and the other is not. And we've got that on our show summary page that people can find at www.thegeneanddaveshow.com. Look for the show and you'll read all about it.
If you ever want more information, just go to our website. We've got it all right there for you. So after our 3D printing, we kind of moseyed on around the showroom floor, and man, there's just awesome stuff in there. And of course, right in the middle of it were our good friends from Nobility.
Yeah, these folks do so much for access and information technology for people with disabilities. So we just had to talk with them. And the first person we spoke with is our old friend Kathy Keller.
So while I was cruising around, you cornered Kathy and asked her a few questions about all this new print media stuff and also other stuff about how it's used in secondary education.
Yeah, now Kathy's trying to work on some state legislation that has to do with accessible materials design council. They're looking to establish a council that'll make sure that whatever learning materials are in the school are accessible to students. Right now there are some issues with students being allowed to use assistive technology to complete their tests and assignments. I know it's hard to believe, but it just stuns me that the school system isn't more helpful to people with disabilities.
So they're able to learn and they do all their studies and they write their papers and everything on all this great assistive technology, but then they go in and take a test and all of a sudden it's taken away from them?
Right, exactly.
Oh man, okay.
And it even gets worse in the post-secondary system in the universities. Believe it or not, education is not the #1 priority for universities. And it boggles the mind that they don't want to make textbooks accessible right away, but there you have it. Maybe you should be a football player, then you get what you want.
All right, so let's listen to Kathy.
I'm Kathy Keller, and my day job is I'm the Electronic Information Resources Accessibility Coordinator for the Department of Family and Protective Services. So, what do you want me to tell you? Like the whole background?
Well, tell us about the bill you're working on now and the group you're working with.
Okay, so the bill that I'm excited to tell you about is House Bill 3586, and that bill will create an Accessible Learning Materials Council, and that council will address issues for students with disabilities in Texas K through 12.
Now, Kathy, we've been working on this for years. I mean, even before the ADA, about accessible learning materials. We tried to get e-books into school years and years ago, And our biggest problem back then was copyright issues. Has that been raised in your group at all?
Frankly, we haven't talked about copyright issues as much as we've talked about just all the general access issues for students in K through 12, and how sometimes they have access to their learning materials, but they can't use their assistive technology for taking tests, and that can be a big issue for them. There are many discrepancies with students and their programs for accessibility in K through 12. So my good friend Jan McSorley, who you know well.
Sure, oh yeah. Yeah, we know Jan.
Yeah, Jan's a great advocate, and she and I and some others began a work group that we call the K through 12 Accessibility Work Group, and we've been meeting monthly since January of 2012. And this fall, we got really geared up, and we met with the Chief of Staff at Representative Mark Strama's office. Her name is Mary Throop, and we presented to her the issues that we had put together regarding the civil rights of students with disabilities in K through 12. And Strama's office really took an interest in this, and we worked closely with them to put this bill together that would create this council. You know, Gene, there's a council now that addresses accessibility for state agencies. It's the Accessibility Council of Texas, and that group's been around for about 7 years, and our friend Glenda Sims was involved in that, and Ron Lucy from DARS, and a lot of great folks that work for state agencies, or did, like Glenda did work for a state agency. We were putting our efforts towards making electronic information accessible to the public and to staff working at state agencies. So this bill for K through 12 would create a council very much structured after the Accessibility Council of Texas. It would have subject matter experts in accessible technology, as well as TEA and teachers and parents of students with disabilities. So we're very hopeful about this.
Now, after we talked with Kathy, we spoke with Desiree, and Desiree knows everything about any Mac product and accessibility. She's always showing us all kind of cool things. But this year she also showed us her refreshable Braille unit and other things.
And Desiree's no stranger to the Gene and Dave show.
That's right.
I think she wins an award for being on the most of our shows, because if we need something about knowledge and technology, boy, Desiree, she's the place to go.
She's super. Tell us about your refreshable Braille unit to start with.
This, you probably, I don't know if you've seen one like it before. This is the Braille Sense Plus, and it actually is running my iPad, not my computer. So it's actually controlling the iPad using VoiceOver and the Braille, so I'm able to basically open any of my apps that I want to, pretty much do anything I want on the iPad using this keyboard and the Braille.
And it's giving you audio feedback?
Audio as well as Braille.
Oh, okay. Super.
The problem is I don't have wireless in here. It's too busy, and all the wireless networks are blocked up, so I can't go to a website on the iPad.
So what's your email address?
It's, well, I'll show it up here on the screen. Look, I'll put it right here. If you want to, it's right there on the screen. cdsturdy@sbcglobal.net or Desiree@nobility.org.
All right, super. Thank you, Thank you, Desiree. All right, thanks, Desiree. Now, the top banana, the chief cook and bottle washer, of course, is Sharon Rush.
Absolutely.
And Sharon built Nobility, which is a organization here in Austin to make or help make the web accessible worldwide. And Sharon had some interesting things to say. Here we are again at South by Southwest 2013. And our favorite booth, Nobility, with Sharon Rush. Sharon, you've been a longtime friend of the show. Tell us what you're doing here today.
Nobility has a booth at South by Southwest. Once a year, we look forward to it. It's our chance to talk about technology access for people with disabilities in a mainstream forum with technology professionals who love technology and maybe have never thought about what does it mean to make technology accessible to people with disabilities. So we get to be here with all these bright thinkers and innovators and get them engaged in the challenge of making websites and other technology accessible to people with disabilities.
So Sharon, Air Austin is fantastic. It helps build websites for folks. It's still going on, correct?
Oh yes, AIR is definitely going on, and in fact it changed a lot this year. That's another thing that we do at South by Southwest is we give away our Accessibility Internet Rally Awards for web professionals who have taken the accessibility challenge and created websites that are accessible by for people with disabilities.
Now, also, you'll be doing the Dewey Awards tonight. Do you want to tell us about that?
We're happy that we get to give our Accessibility Internet Rally, or AIR Awards, in conjunction with the Dewey Winburn Awards. In 2002, I was very privileged to be given honors at the Dewey Winburn Community Service through Technology Awards, and it's something. Dewey Winburn was he was one of the founders of the Interactive Festival. He was a very connected to the community kind of guy. He's one of the kinds of innovators that you see all over South by Southwest. And unfortunately, he passed away before South by Southwest became the phenomenon that it is now. But they understood his influence and his dedication to the community by creating this award. They give 10 people a Dewey Winburn Community Service Award every year in recognition of ways that technology transforms the lives of people in the community, people who use basically technology for good or tech for good. So yeah, the Dewey Winburn Awards, we do that in conjunction with the Accessibility Internet Rally, or AIR Awards.
Yeah, she is so tied into South by Southwest. Never surprises me. She's always right on the ball and just right in there. So we thank you so much, Sharon, for all your help with the Gene and Dave show, and also for just making the world a better place.
Absolutely.
And a more accessible place.
Exactly.
So thanks to Sharon and the rest of the crew at Nobility.
Now, every year at South by Southwest, Sharon and the group at Nobility will present the Dewey Winburn Community Service Awards. That's an award given to folks who use information technology as a community service. And yours truly was a nominee one year. So I went to the ceremony, the Dewey Winburn ceremony presentation, and I ran into our old friend Charles Chen. Now, if you folks are a fan of the show, you'll remember that Charles Chen was an intern at the John Slayton Institute for Accessibility here in Austin some years back, and wrote a plugin for a web browser that would read aloud mathematical symbols. Now, if you're science-minded and you're blind, this is huge. This is a big deal. And Charles did it while he was an intern. Well, now he's over at Google, and he came in from California, from Google there, to the South by Southwest this year. And he was telling me about an organization called Tekla, and they've got amazing products for people with disabilities.
Yeah, this thing is so cool. Just hook it up to your wheelchair or whatever device, even just a single button. I was amazed, just a single button, and you can control your smartphone with it. Amazing stuff. Check out this video that we stole off the web about Tekla.
Smartphones and tablets are revolutionizing our lives, but millions of people are still unable to use them due to disease or disability. Introducing the Tekla Shield, The Tekla Shield helps people with mobility issues by letting them use the interfaces they are familiar with to control state-of-the-art mobile devices. The user activates an adapted switch or the driving control of their wheelchair to send commands to the Tekla Shield. Then, the Tekla Shield relays the command wirelessly to the mobile device. Tekla allows control of smartphones and tablets with adapted devices ranging from a single switch to multiple switch inputs. Tekla will soon be compatible with more devices, so stay tuned.
So for me to access the phone, I use the different switches that are already available on my chair. It's I drive with my headrest and this shoulder switch to sort of change gears forwards, backwards. But when using the phone, there's things on the back called an ECU box, and so it's they're all connected that way. So I would use the shoulder switch to switch to the ECU box, and then I would use the head controls to navigate the on-screen keyboard of Tekla.
Now, Dave, we know that Sharon is always in the know. She told us about Leap Motion, which is a vendor at South by Southwest.
Okay.
So we went to check out what they were showing, their demo. But first, here's a video we stole off the web that really gives an idea of what this product is all about.
So if you are able to use your hands somewhat, but maybe you have difficulty with the keyboard or using a mouse, this looks like a really cool alternative for anybody that can just kind of wave their arms around and make something happen. So let's check out their little demo first.
Yeah, that was amazing. I've never seen anything like that before. I went to test it out.
So their demo was cool, but you wanted to actually see if you could use this thing. Because these guys were using chopsticks and pinching and dragging, and using both arms and swinging around like they were kung fu masters. But you know, how is this really going to work in the real world? So you went down there to check it out, right?
Absolutely. Now I can't use my fingers at all. My hand is permanently in a ball like this. But I was able to play the virtual harp by waving my hand over this device they had on the desk. In the video, you could see the virtual strings getting plucked there. Unfortunately, the volume's not good in this video, but so someone like myself can interface with the computer. I'm thinking other people with lesser disabilities this might really open up their world. So we were really happy to see that.
Oh man, I can't wait to hear this music that you made, Gene. All right, so here's Gene plucking away.
You do? What?
Dave, you remember our friend Glenda Sims?
Sure, she was also at the Nobility booth.
Yeah, she was, and she's been in Austin so many years, evangelizing the virtues of accessibility and such. And she was on our technology show years ago and taught us what it means to have an accessible web page, really how to make it accessible. She's now at a company called DQ, and they do all things accessible on the web. But here's what Glenda had to say. Now, Glenda, you're an old friend of their shows. You helped us understand how to build an accessible website for our Access show. And now you're with DQ, and DQ is spelled
DEQUE, but I joke with my family that I'm really just a manager at Dairy Queen. Would you like a blizzard with that?
And what exactly does DQ do?
So we do anything to do with digital accessibility because we just want to make sure that everything is available to everyone. I do strategic planning, we do manual evaluations, we do automated evaluations, we do captioning, you name it. If it's in the digital space, we can make it accessible.
And how important is that to make websites accessible? I mean, what does it mean to the company that owns the website?
You know, that's a really good question, Gene, because I've been in the field for about 12 years. And 12 years ago, we were doing it because we believed it was the right thing to do. We believed it was part of making sure that everyone had equal access. There's been a lot of legislation and, to tell you true, lawsuits since then about equal rights, that the internet, that the web really is a human right. Access to this information is a human right. And so what I've discovered in the past 2 years is that more and more companies are coming to this. Some of them are coming to it because of legal pressure, but a lot of them are recognizing that this is an equal right and they're excited about it. So it is critically important for companies to do this without a doubt, because there's legal pressures. But what I love more than anything is the connection into universal design. So we're not just doing this for people with disabilities, but it actually ends up making for a better web presence for all. My favorite catch line is, when we think about disabilities, we think about people that cannot see, people that cannot hear, people that may not be able to use a mouse, cognitive and speech. I want you to remember that so much of the digital world is lacking those same senses. For example, Google is deaf, blind, and cannot use a mouse. So the things that we do to make the web more accessible to people with disabilities actually makes for a better experience for all, whether we look at search engine optimization or whether we look at mobile devices and more.
I talk to some folks at companies and I say, well, this isn't really accessible. And they say something like, well, we're not required to be accessible. And my question is, well, why wouldn't you want to be accessible?
And I think that there has been, for a number of years, a lack of understanding for people that accessibility does require to them, that it is a part of the Americans with Disability Act. If you are in the United States, there are laws that are going into place internationally. Canada is just passing a law. So I'm finding much more recognition of this. Companies are coming to us before they get into legal trouble. What's been most impressive to me is that when I get into these big, like Fortune 100 companies that might be under a little pressure from upper management to move forward on accessibility, I'm always wondering, are the developers going to be excited about it? Or are they not going to be happy to see me? And what I've found every single time is that as soon as I introduce them to what accessibility really is, equal access, equal rights, web for everyone, web on everything, that they catch fire with it. And before I know it, I'm getting phone calls from Fortune 100 developers who are trying to use a screen reader for the first time. And they're going, oh my God, this is awful. And I'm like, yes. And they go, how did they ever handle this? I'm like, well, they're really courageous and tenacious. And they start to care, and they take it even further. They're like, how is this person really going to be able to buy this ticket and attend this event? They stop even caring just about the digital space, but they want to make sure that the person who purchased whatever it is can actually experience it, enjoy it all the way to its fullest. So it's that connection to doing good for real humans that lights them on fire.
She's wonderful. I always like speaking with her.
Oh yeah, she's a lot of fun. So we do occasionally get away from the showroom floor And we got the opportunity to go to a few workshops too. And we found another gentleman that also is blind, who uses the phone as a device, kind of as Desiree has shown us over and over again. You know, she doesn't leave home without it. Her phone helps her do everything. And we met Victor, who also talked about his phone and the apps for his phone.
Yeah, Victor works at Yahoo, and he develops apps for folks with disabilities, particularly visual impairments, to interface with their phone, particularly to buy things. But Victor conducted this workshop, and then he invited the audience to take part in getting a first-hand look of what a phone actually does, to getting a sense of what needs to be accessible. Here's Victor.
There's an interesting delta here when you start talking about users who don't interact with interfaces in the same way as most people do. And so, for example, if you have a low vision, that light, for example, may be too weak for you, or the color may not be the right color. If you're blind and you put your light switch somewhere near the floor, most likely I'm never going to be able to find it, right? What I'm going to ask Jeff to do is to use this Android device and describe what do you feel when you use this device. Okay, go ahead. You can just start dragging your finger.
What do I feel?
1406.
Home screen 3. Play Store.
Well, I feel it vibrate every time.
Home screen 3.
Can't tell if
Double
it's...
tap to select. Double tap and hold to long press. Folder. Google.
I think it's vibrating when I get to something different.
Folder opened. 4x3. Organize your apps with folders. To make a new folder on your home screen.
Anything else?
Well, it's also talking to me.
Yeah, okay, that's cool. We got
Possible actions.
Yeah. Anything else? Yeah, you can try it again. Try it as long as you need.
Yeah, I'm stuck in...
Just don't delete stuff.
Yeah, you can touch home.
Delete operating system.
Double touch.
Folder closed.
Okay, so far all I've noticed is a vibrating.
ES5 home screen analog clock. 1407.
It's all kind of smashed together, so you really have to listen to what's going on.
Firefox Beta.
Okay, cool.
The voice for Android.
And I can see, well, because I can see the outline.
Sure.
Of what's being
Got
said.
it. Anything else that you, let me just, can you grab this one for a second?
Bill, please.
The voice for home screen 4.
Well, I heard some
Okay.
chimes too.
Sorry?
I heard some chimes when I...
Exactly, yeah. So this is what's called, Google calls it ear cons. It's kind of like icons, but for your ears.
So different.
Yeah, the idea is that those sounds, you can also use them as a guide to let you know what's happening. So for example, when I scroll left or right, so you can see, so as I move up or down or left or right, you'll hear this ding, 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 this sound. So this is just to let you know that, you know, in case you didn't hear the speech, you can listen for these sound cues to tell you what kind of action you're performing. Okay? Okay, so let's summarize. We got what's called haptic feedback. As Jeff told you, when he touched, it was vibrating. So every time he moved his finger, he would feel again, you know, and then there's the sound, right? Okay, let's do the same thing with the iOS device, right?
So Victor was really smart, and in fact, you know, he seemed to have his own crystal ball, and even talked about a few secrets that he's working on with the Yahoo folks about this is something that you might see coming soon.
Yeah, this was amazing. We asked Victor, well, what should we expect to see in the future? And he was telling us one thing is an explosion in gesture-based programs or apps. And this is like that Leap Motion program. Just waving your hand or looking at something will interface with the computer or smartphone. And so I'm looking forward to that, so I can make some funny faces on my iPhone and see what happens.
And we know it's coming. In fact, you heard it right here on the Gene and Dave show, so don't say we didn't tell you so. Speaking of crystal balls and Victor, he said that they're going to start using some of that technology of the phone guessing what you're thinking, and predicting based on your gestures and things you're doing. One of the examples he used, like if you look outside, if you look out the window, your phone will just say, well, today it's going to be partly sunny with a high of 95. Just because you're looking at the window and the phone knows, well, he must be thinking about the weather.
Yeah, it's kind of scary, but for folks like me, it might be helpful. I don't want to be spending all my time at the keyboard, so that could be a good thing.
So just turn on your gesture recognition and the thing will tell you, what's going to happen.
Yeah, that was a good group. I think some people were surprised. Victor mentioned the earcons instead of icons, those little symbols. It's the earcons for people that hear things. There's little things on the phone that'll will alert you to certain situations. So it was good to be able to be there.
It was some pretty cool stuff.
Yep. Thank you, Victor.
So we've talked a lot about the technology devices and the things of how some people do it or use them to be able to live and to be able to do the things that they need to do. But another group that we heard and we talked to at another workshop was how these devices and the applications for them, once we get an iPad or an iPhone, how people with autism and learning disabilities can just explode with their learning just by being able to hold an iPad and to be in control of their own learning and to make their own choices. And they went over app after app after app of things that has changed not only the lives of children with autism, but also adults. And one thing that you can watch for in here is them talking about how adults don't need a Mickey Mouse app because they're adults.
Right.
But they still want to learn some of the same basic concepts and tools, and those apps are out there too.
Yep,
and these
age-appropriate apps, yeah.
Sure, and these folks showed us how. This was very interesting and really opened my mind to many new applications available for people with autism.
Yeah, this Apps for Autism group was packed. Their room, it was a huge room, and it was just packed. You and I had trouble finding places to sit. But they explained what autism was. Sammy, the one gentleman speaking there, told us that he had a free book online, apps for special needs. If you look at the title online, they use the number 4 instead of spelling it out F-O-R. But if you look for apps for special needs on the web, you'll find a place you can download it for free, or at least view it for free. But yeah, let's take a look at this, David.
Or if you don't want to look around for it, you know where to go. TheGeneandDaveShow.com. That'll be right there in the show summary for our South by Southwest 2013 show. But now, let's check these folks out.
And finally, we have Sammy Brahman.
Hi.
Sammy is the co-founder of BridgingApps.org, and he's also the author of this great book, Getting Started, iPad Special Needs, which is also available on the web for free. He has certification in assistive technology applications programs from Cal State, and he works with Easter Sons of Greater Houston with his company that helps parents, therapists, doctors, and teachers share information on how to use mobile devices like iPad, iPhone, iPad Touch, and Android. So when we're looking at autism, there's a lot of stereotypes about autism. Right now, the only way to get diagnosed with an autism spectrum disorder is through a behavioral test. And because of this, everybody's individual needs and what they need out of applications are completely different. You can literally have 60 people in a room and no one will be anything alike. They're as individual as a snowflake. So what ties all this group together? Well, most people with autism have some sort of speech and language communication delay. They have poor social skills, and sometimes you're looking to adaptive and maladaptive behavior. But in reality, you're looking at spectrum diagnoses again. When you're looking at language, you have people that are absolutely nonverbal and will never learn to talk. That doesn't mean there's lack of intelligence. It just means they need a better way to communicate. And some people are pre-verbal, can only say 2 to 3 words at a time. And then you have people on the spectrum that will absolutely shout your ears off. All of them usually have some social language deficits. When it comes to social, you have the population that's completely withdrawn, doesn't want to be around people, to be highly social. You have sensory issues, normal sensory to sensory overload. Your processors run way too fast or too slow. So sometimes individuals can be in a building, but they can see the flickering light. Everything's too loud. And it's very hard just to do everyday activities. You have behavioral issues from non-existent to aggressive, mainly caused by frustration, usually lack of communication skills, and self-injury. A lot of people have fine motor delays, and many people have what's called dysgraphia. It's a disability where it's almost impossible to write, and it's very hard to do anything with your fine motor. So there's been so many ways to work with people with autism for communication. There's sign language. There's a very cumbersome book called PECS that has individual pictures that they can communicate with. But now that the iPad, iPhone, and iTouch has come out, it's been a game changer in communication. And the great thing about it, it's really simple. And finally, a solution for parents with children that doesn't cost thousands and thousands of dollars. It's affordable. Everybody can go out and get one. And for some reason, and we really don't know why, but most children with autism really engage with these tablets much more than they do a laptop. And it's been a game changer. The pros, again, super easy to use, inexpensive, and the best thing about it, it's portable. In the past, you're carting around big devices, big books. You can take this everywhere, and it's socially acceptable. You don't stand out in a crowd. You can interface it with other programs you need to stay organized, such as your calendars, etc. But the bad thing about the iPad is it's so fun and so engaging that you really don't want to do anything else. Children with autism can get completely engrossed in their tablets, and they can focus on their favorite topic. Maybe it's trains. And they're trying to get social interaction, better academic performance, and working towards job goals. This can be a con as well. And now I would like to turn over our panel to Betsy Fuller, who's going to talk more about speech and language in the iPad.
Hi, I'm Betsy Furler. I'm a speech pathologist, as Jennifer said, and also an autism consultant. And I started using the iPod Touch as soon as it came out because I knew that the kids and adults I worked with would love it. And I used it basically for reinforcement, the iPod Touch, because of the size of it. It was really difficult to share that experience. But when the iPad came out, it really was a game changer because all of a sudden we have that interactivity of the iPad in the iPod Touch in a larger size that I could share the experience with the child or adult I was working with. So I could literally talk to you for about 4 or 5 days about how I use the iPod and the iPad. But I only have a few minutes, so I'm just going to go through a few of my favorite apps and give you just a little idea of why I like those apps and what makes them so great. Anybody is welcome to come find me afterwards, and I have my iPad with me always as my little comfort item. And I am more than happy to tell you all about the apps I love and show you some of them.
She's a liar. She has multiple iPads.
Okay, I have multiple iPads, but I only have one today.
She has an ankle holster.
I say I'm going to start iPads and Apps Anonymous for myself. So some of my favorite apps for communication, and all these apps also will be on our website at www.bridgingapps.org. we'll have a list of all of them so you don't have to write them down or anything like that. So some of my favorite apps for communication are Prolo Go was one of their very first augmentative communication apps out there. It really is at a conversational level if you need it to be, and it's also very customizable. That's one thing I love about apps and working with kids with special needs, is that if you can customize it to their interests or your own content, that is a huge plus. You can also bring in your own photos or drawings or pictures. I also like Sonoflex. It's a similar app, just set up a little bit of a different way. It's also for augmentative communication. They also can both be used in core language or functional language. So Much to Say is an entry-level augmentative communication app. Some of these AAC apps, as we call them, are $200–300 for the app, so they are fairly pricey. So for some of the early users, maybe a child or an adult who's nonverbal, but we think that we've kind of missed out on their communication all these years and we just want to try something out and see what we can get. Something like So Much to Say, which is about $25, is a much better starting point. And you can also upload your own pictures and things like that into it. Again, it's very customizable. And then Go Talk Now is another customizable app that is modeled after and made by a company who has had a long success with augmentative communication. The iPad and apps are also great for social skills. It seems a little counterintuitive because you think about people turning into their devices, but we really all use our devices for a lot of socialization. And there are lots of apps out there. Some of my three favorites are My Playhome, which is a digital dollhouse. And you move the people around in the dollhouse, and you can pretend that they're talking to each other. They can eat food. They can take a shower, and then they come out of the shower dripping wet, and you have to dry them off with a towel. It's great for social skills, working with the child. Two people can actually activate that app at the same time, and it also leads into pretend play. I love to use apps with kids that if the child's very motivated by technology, use an app that I can then go into pretend play, kind of the reverse of what we normally think of as using technology with kids. Uno is a card game that y'all are probably all familiar with. I've always loved using it in therapy, love it on the iPad even more because, as I say, everything's more fun with the iPad. And then Social Express is a complete curriculum for teaching social skills. Very engaging, and it goes through little videos and activities with the kids to learn social skills like eye contact and looking at the person who's talking to you and looking at the object that we're talking about.
Can I add one?
Yes.
I'd like to add, also we use, my son has PENOS, we use FaceTime to communicate with his grandparents. So it's a real treat for them when they can figure out how to use it. And it's a way of reinforcing eye contact and social interaction for him. So again, it's a perfect comment in that space.
Yeah, that's great. I also use FaceTime with a boy that I've worked with for 13 years. He's on the autism spectrum. I started with him when he was 3. And a couple of years ago, he started getting a little tired of me. And now we FaceTime probably 50% of our sessions. And he is so engaged with me now. And he's also having to do things like, if I'm not online, he has to text me or call me and tell me to get online so we can have our session. He has a problem with a word, if we're reading or something, he has to, if he spells it to me, sometimes I'm still like, I still don't know what you're talking about. He has to type the word out and send me a message with that word. And then also if I happen to not be on FaceTime or if he wants to send me another message, he's been sending me, we actually use Skype most of the time, he's been sending me video messages, and it's really cool. I've really seen his skills improve so much with that app that is used by lots of people for lots of different reasons. It wasn't designed for someone to use for therapy for a child with autism. Apps for language skills, there are millions of them out there, but my big thing with language skill apps is I really like good graphics. That is something that's missing from a lot of the apps that are developed for the special needs population. So I end up using a lot of apps that are developed for just the general population because I love good graphics. Grammar Wonderland is a really cool app that comes actually in 2 different levels, and it's made by one of the textbook publishing houses. And it's beautiful graphics and it's very game-like. So for some of those kids that are kind of reluctant to do more academic school kind of work, that kind of app is fantastic.
You know, Dave, when the presentation was over, they had a line of people wanting to ask questions, and everyone just stuck around because they wanted more and more information. And there's a wealth of information out there. There's more resources, like you say, on our webpage. So please feel free to explore our website and see what you can find there.
Yeah, and if you can't find us, please email us. Use the contact link at the top and email Dave or Gene at the Gene and Dave Show, and we'll see if we can answer it. If you send us a really great question, we might come out and film you, or we might go out and film whoever you're wanting to know about. It'd be great to add your comments and your story to our own show.
And until the next time, folks, take care. This is Gene.
And I'm Dave.
With the
Gene and Dave Show.
See you next time.
Bye now.